And we're back with an all-new episode of Keep It. I remain Louis Vertel, the person who will continue to be on Keep It, so you better get used to me. Ira Madison, who usually is on this podcast and has only 3 episodes left, is still on Fire Island. I was just there myself. There is no reason for anybody to spend that much time there. So I don't know if he's in financial trouble or simply can't get off the island. I have no idea, but he is there. And today we have a guest host who is not just a very talented writer and fabulous person. I have known this bastard for fucking ever. This is basically my first friend in LA, Kyle Buchanan, who is the awards columnist regarding movies for the New York Times and also just a general movies festival gentleman, and also one of the most knowledgeable movie people I think I'll ever meet in this lifetime. So welcome back to Keep It.
Well, to be granted that compliment by you, Louis, means a lot. But I was thinking about this the other day, too. I'm like, I think I'm an essential part of some Louis lore here, because was I the first or one of the first people to tell you that you should go by Vertel and not Vertel?
That's an interesting question, because I moved here in 2009, and I feel like I was headed that way anyway, because everybody guessed it was pronounced Vertel.
It just felt correct.
Yeah.
Like the sharpness of Vertel as opposed to Vertel. Like, you know, like you have that sharp wit to you.
Thank you.
And you like sharp things. You like sharp cheekbones.
Yes.
I feel like you often, if somebody has sharp cheekbones, you call them Andros from Star Fox.
Sure.
Like,
yes.
You know, you like things that have a right angle, and that pronunciation definitely does.
The miniseries Sharp Objects.
Yes.
Maybe the only time I've thought Patricia Clarkson was an A+. Maybe.
Ooh.
Yes. Pieces of April. Have you seen it recently? Got to be the cheapest movie ever nominated for an Oscar. Anyway, yeah, I met you in 2007 when I was an intern for The Advocate, and you were the movie critic at The Advocate, which is the national gay lesbian magazine.
Yes.
Still around in some form. And then we became co-workers at movieline.com, where you were you had moved there from Defamer at Gawker. And we got to be snarky about movies for a couple years together.
And somewhere along the way, you stopped wearing scarves.
Yes. Well, here's what people don't know about LA. In January at night, it is a little cold. It's quite windy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had, you know, an Urban Outfitters fuchsia scarf that I'd throw in from time to time. But people perceive that as something is mentally wrong with this man.
This was no pashmina. This was like, I'm not saying it's a Lenny Kravitz like jumbo XXL scarf, but still a scarf. To the extent that Andrew Colon, our mutual friend, called you Scarfy for a long time.
That's right.
And now suffice it to say, Louis wears as little as he can get away with.
Yes.
A mere mucous membrane suggestion of a shirt.
Yeah. It wasn't a Lenny Kravitz style, but it was Steven Tyler. I mean, it was pretty thick. It was pretty thick. But you were, of course, in the news recently because you just co-engineered this gigantic project at the New York Times where you ranked the 100 greatest movies of the 21st century and polled seemingly everybody. We're going to get into that today. The bulk of our episode today is about the 100 greatest movies of the 21st century. We'll look at what made the list, what didn't make the list, and then Kyle and I will also get into our personal ballots for what belongs on the best of the 21st century list. But I guess my first question is, how did this idea happen, and was it yours?
Well, you know, the culture section had done one for books last year, and that was a big enterprise, very successfully received, and it just felt like the natural no-brainer to do a movies one. But still, there's a lot that goes into it, you know, like, you know how when you're trying to invite people to something, there's always that one friend who's like, who's all going to be there? Mm-hmm. That can be Hollywood sometimes. They, you know, big A-list stars and directors like the kind that we got also wanted to know who else was taking part. And part of the fun of putting together a list like this is seeing, well, who did people vote for? Which movies did they select, you know? Okay, Sofia Coppola is picking, you know, In the Mood for Love, sure, but also The Incredibles. It's fun to get those ballots in there, but you also have to coax people a little bit because they're like, well, I didn't vote for my friend's movie. I don't know if I want my ballot public. And you have to fight the urge to say, well, I've read your friend's ballot and they didn't vote for you either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of wheedling you kind of have to do to make sure they feel safe, etc. Meanwhile, it's like all I want is to read famously awesome filmmakers' ideas about what a good movie is. Like, I'm desperate for that content.
Yes, you can sort of like triangulate somebody's sensibility based on the movies that they voted for. And that was part of the fun of this project anyway, because there's this feature that went mega viral where you could create your own list of the 10 best movies since 2000. And I honestly think that took off to a degree that people didn't even realize it was part of the other project. But it was fun to read every single person's list, people that I knew, filmmakers I admired, because you do get a sense of somebody's personality, not just the movies they like, but who are they as a person.
Did you have a favorite celebrity ballot choice that really struck your fancy?
Luca Guadagnino picking John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars. I don't get it. And the fact that I don't get it makes me want to lean in. That's the kind of thing that I love.
Yeah, that is fabulous. Now, speaking of movies that will not make that list, Jurassic Park Rebirth? Jurassic World Rebirth?
Jurassic World Rebirth.
I have a pretty good memory for movie titles. The Jurassic Worldliness has totally fucked up my brain. I never get it together.
And I just want to keep going back to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, right.
Do we really have to standardize world? Let's go back to park.
Like Jurassic World sounds more like a theme park than Jurassic Park.
Right.
Yeah. But because of its fabulous showing at the box office last weekend, now officially Scarlett Johansson, and I'm sure this includes cameos, etc., in the various movies in which she barely appeared, superhero-wise, is now the highest-grossing actress of all time. How does that sit with you? Or actor of all time?
I loved Scarlett Johansson back in Ghost World.
Of course.
And I think that movie
You're
ends...
gay too, right? Okay,
Yes, obviously.
Okay, you are. Okay.
I think that movie ends in an interesting way because, Thora Birch, it's about these two teenage girls who are sort of alt, and Thora Birch eventually realizes that they're not going to be friends forever because Scarlett Johansson is taking a more mainstream path, her character.
Yes.
But then also the actress, she started in indies and now she is allegedly the highest grossing actress of all time because of Marvel, because of, wearing tank tops and fighting dinosaurs and being named Zora. Zora Bennett. Sure, absolutely, if you say so. I love it for her because she is a somewhat unique star. I love it when a deep voiced woman succeeds.
Yes.
So I root for her to that degree. But I am kind of curious now that she's got all of this, time-tested box office appeal, if she's going to do things that are a little bit more outside the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, she is, I mean, to a certain extent, trapped in the prison of these giant movies for a long time. But then I feel like she has always been good about getting back to things that are quote unquote interesting. It's not like you have to wait 10 years for her to do a Lost in Translation. We've ended up having Marriage Story and Lucy or stranger, options for her. And I have to say, she's good in all of them. I can't really think of a movie in which I've found her deficient.
Yeah, she's a very good actress, especially when she's really keyed into something, as she was in Marriage Story. She's now taking a detour into directing. I saw her directorial debut, Eleanor the Great, at Cannes. Very strange movie. June Squibb is the star, and it was very touching to see, a woman in her 90s lead a movie and get a standing ovation. The movie, I believe, was referred to on social media as Dear Evan Hansen for the Holocaust.
Okay.
Which
you wouldn't
necessarily
Yes.
not necessarily the movie you would expect ScarJo to be like, now I'm going behind the camera. But basically, yeah, it's about, June Squibb is a 90-year-old woman who moves back to be with Jessica Hecht, her daughter. I know your antenna just went up.
Yes.
In the big city, and she's at the end of her life, or she's nearing it, and one of her friends just died, and you think it's going to be about late in life misadventures in New York, and instead she tells a lie to many people that she was a Holocaust survivor, and the movie becomes very much about that in a strange, unwieldy way.
Wow.
Why did Scarlett Johansson make this movie? I'm not totally sure, but as a palate cleanser after Jurassic World Rebirth, hey, whatever floats your boat, ScarJo.
This is a completely random movie I'm bringing up. Have you ever seen the movie Music Box with Jessica Lange?
No, but please say more.
It's a Joe Esterhaus movie. So this is the guy who ended up writing Basic Instinct. And before that, he did Jagged Edge, which is a very similar movie. But it's about this Jessica Lange. Her father is played by Armin Mueller-Stahl, later nominated for Shine, is somehow involved in the Holocaust, and people are starting to come after him. They're like, he's committed war crimes, and he claims he hasn't. And then anyway, you're figuring out whether or not he did it. I'm so sorry. I have reverence for the horrors of the Holocaust, but turning it into whodunit fare, I kind of love.
This is definitely more Holocaust talk than you might have expected from a Jurassic World segment, but also more Holocaust talk than I might have expected from a Scarlett Johansson directorial career. That said, when it comes to Jurassic World Rebirth, my favorite thing about this movie has been the memes. I don't know if you've seen, there is some sort of like mass gaslighting that is very funny happening on social media where people are trying to convince people who have not seen this movie yet that it is about Scarlett Johansson turning into a dinosaur.
I've seen there's a picture of the dinosaur with like a blonde
ponytail, like her
tuft of hair.
Yes, these incredible mock-ups of alleged like screen grabs from the movie where she is becoming all scaly, but she still has that goddamn blonde ponytail. And the things I love about this, beyond the obvious things, are it reminds me of one of my favorite weird bits of Jurassic Park lore, which is that I think after the third original movie, John Sayles, who wrote and directed Lone Star, all these indie movies, was hired to write a gonzo fourth Jurassic Park movie about human dinosaur hybrids. Like, I just love the idea that Steven Spielberg was watching like Casa de los Babies and thinking to himself, I want to hire John Sayles to write a bug nuts crazy Jurassic Park movie with a character named Raptor Man. That makes total sense to me.
That is extremely wild. Well, also seeing the pictures of these dinosaurs take me back to, do you remember Dino Park Tycoon?
I don't.
It was
that like Roller Coaster Tycoon?
And it predates that. And it was you put together a little theme park, and if you got enough money, there was this dinosaur you could buy who was called like Vegasaurus or something, and he was like showbiz. He was like, all the other ones were like normal Triceratops or whatever, then this one wore like shades. Anyway, I feel like he is like the Mac Daddy of this particular meme. So look up this. This was my entire fifth grade experience. So if you don't remember Dino Park Tycoon, it really slayed.
And did the dinosaurs eventually turn on the player as dinosaurs do when confined to a park?
I feel like there was some danger of they could kind of break out, but it was not horror-ish. They should have really tapped into that more. I would have enjoyed it.
They didn't like take off and eat Clippy from Microsoft Word.
I have that drawn in my Art One notebook. If you would like to see it sometime. Also, this episode, our guest is the two-time Emmy-winning Ty Burrell, formerly of Modern Family, and now he has a new Audible original series about his childhood that we'll get into. So we're going to get into the New York Times 100 Greatest Movies of the 21st Century, and we'll do that right when we're back. Last month, the New York Times asked 500 of Hollywood's biggest filmmakers, stars, and critics to list the best films of the 21st century. Our guest host, Kyle, and the rest of the editorial team then whittled that list down to the 100 essential films. So today, we're going to dive into the list and share our own ballots. But first, Kyle, why don't you tell us about how this team even handled such a sprawling project?
You know, this really was an all hands on deck situation for the Culture Desk, and we got so many amazing people to take part. You know, we have Oscar winning directors like Pedro Almodovar, Sofia Coppola, Guillermo del Toro, Barry Jenkins. We've got Tilda Swinton, Javier Bardem, Chiwetel Ejiofor, recent Keep It guest Danielle Deadwyler. You know, we got Sean Baker, Mikey Madison, who did Anora. We have people as young as Rachel Zegler and as old as Mel Brooks. And we ask them to say, what are the 10 best movies released since January 1st, 2000? So the 10 best movies of the last 25 years. And you could really define that however you wanted. I actually am happy that I think a lot of people would have been tempted to just put down prestige picks, but you had Julianne Moore voting for things like Superbad and The 40-Year-Old Virgin, you know? So we have more comedies on the list than you'd expect. I think more movies that people have seen on the list than you would expect. We took those 10 from each person and we tabulated that towards a master list of 100.
I'm thinking about Julianne Moore picking those two movies, and I feel like what that is that's the one genre of movie you wouldn't immediately hire her for. So there's like a level of X factor to those movies for her.
Right.
You know, like a goofy teen comedy.
Yes, absolutely. But she's not trying out for an Apatow movie now. Let's be serious.
Right. Precisely. Okay, so on this list, I'll just start right from the top. Parasite, Bong Joon-ho's Best Picture winning movie from 2019, is at number 1. Then Mulholland Drive. We have celebrated David Lynch here copiously recently. 3 is There Will Be Blood. 4, In the Mood for Love, which I feel like people voted for because it's now a movie you just associate with lists. You know, like if you're thinking of great movies, you can't not think of In the Mood for Love.
I was surprised because there's a reader's version of this, and In the Mood for Love actually placed pretty highly on that one too. So maybe it has found its audience.
Hopefully. 5 is Moonlight. 6 is No Country for Old Men. 7 is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. 8, Get Out. 9, Spirited Away. 10, The Social Network. Keep It favorite Tar is at 67, and then just a few spots below, Carol is 72. After Sun, the Paul Mescal acting triumph, is at 78, just before Everything Everywhere All at Once. Let's just talk about what charted really highly on this list. First of all, what were you surprised to see get, for example, maybe into the top 20?
You know, honestly, I was surprised that Parasite was number one initially. I thought it might have been Mulholland Drive. You know, that there's a movie that you associate with best of the century lists. But Parasite being number one, it kind of feels right once you start to think about it. That is a movie that feels only more relevant in the themes that it's talking about, in that class disparity and the rage that we feel. So you know, I was very happy once that sort of very decisively placed at first. I wasn't expecting, and I was really psyched because I put this on my own ballot, Y Tu Mama Tambien to be in the top 20. I was like, okay, we're all a little more bisexual than I thought we were. You know, I thought that might have been something that wouldn't make the list at all. And to see that as Alfonso Cuarón's highest rated film, that thrilled me.
No, Diego Luna just guest hosted Kimmel last week. Do you know who he's dating?
No, who?
I was sitting in the crowd during rehearsal, and this woman is nearby, and I'm like, I absolutely, I absolutely know I've seen this woman before, and she's an actress. It took Marina de Tavira from Roma.
No kidding.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
How strange, right?
Yes, I got to know her so well when Netflix was basically making everybody from Roma do that award season tap dance for
And it worked.
months. Oh, it absolutely
Yeah.
did work. I mean, she got to know us better than her own family members at a certain point, but she got nominated.
Yes, correct. I think what I like about Parasite, to me, that movie is the 21st century Rear Window, which is, it is a thriller. It is a character drama, and you can enjoy it just on that surface level. If you're literally just looking for, thrills, or like, will they make it out of that room, or will they pull off this heist, basically. But at the same time, the sociological layers of it and the psychological layers of it are so apparent. So you can enjoy it as quote unquote deeply or as surface level as you'd like.
And it's genuinely funny. And I don't think
it
that
has
should be
something for
discounted
everybody.
either.
If you just want the comedy, it's good. If you just want the thrills, it's good. Precisely.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything that surprised you that it made the list?
Well, I'll just say that I don't understand what about The Wolf of Wall Street belongs in the top 20.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I mean, I think The Wolf of Wall Street is,
which is at number 20
a
here.
fun, great movie. Should it be in the top 20? It's not where I would put it. It's the highest placing Scorsese. And also notable that Scorsese got 2 on here and Spielberg just barely managed 1, Minority Report, which is 94. But yeah, it's a movie that I think because of, again, there are movies on this list that sort of feel more thematically relevant than ever. And, at a time when we all feel fleeced by the rich, here's a movie that's kind of about that, at a time when we're all sort of dealing with the encroachment of technology on our humanity. There's a zillion movies on this list about that, from The Social Network to Her to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So I do think that sometimes when people are thinking of, well, what movies have I loved from the last 25 years? They're also bringing in the context of the last 25 years.
Yeah.
What movies seem to speak to what's been happening to us?
You're going to say The Zone of Interest is at number 12, for example. Plenty of dystopias on here. It should be noted that Kyle wrote a book about Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes, which placed number 11. I would have had it higher.
Yes, interesting. Here's what I will also say about the top 20. Not too many lady characters in the top 20 of this list. Did that upset you in any way?
Somewhat. Yeah, the female representation, obviously, we talked to many, many, many women. We wanted to make this as equitable a polling process as possible. But then you still get Julianne Moore voting for Superbad,
right,
and The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Bridesmaids made the list. That's a very high-placing female-driven comedy. I was sort of upset that Mean Girls wasn't there. Superbad placed 100. We had a lot of other male-driven comedies. Borat is on there, for example. But Mean Girls, I mean, come on, that's a generation-defining teen comedy. That is one of the most quotable comedies, certainly, that has come out. One of the most quotable movies, period, that has come out in the last 25 years. And I was at least glad that the readers' poll rectified that mistake. Mean Girls did make the top 100 for the readers.
Yeah. I mean, I think what upsets me is we already talked about how Tar and Carol are far down the list. Like, I can't name one thing about those movies that is worse than The Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I don't understand why people are voting for just a big, loud movie with good performances. And I can remember certain parts of it, but I just don't think artistically it achieves anything more than those 2 movies, for example.
And this is not to take anything away from something like There Will Be Blood or something like No Country for Old Men, which are great movies and which do have a sense of humor. But
Yeah.
I wonder, would something like Tar be regarded amongst them in 10 years? Do you
Yeah.
think that'll be in the top 10?
Well, I
or
mean,
is it just a little too femme?
oh, that's interesting. I mean, like, I think that movie is a beast. And also, one of the few movies I've seen where I hate when people say this because I do not believe it means a movie is good or bad, but I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Truly.
And what it was trying to say. And if I was even gleaning the full message, I want to say something about There Will Be Blood being at number 3. I personally cannot imagine watching that movie and not thinking the first half is amazing and the second half is men screaming. It's just melodrama that like builds on the melodrama, and you either just say awesome at it, which I think a lot of people do, and I think a lot of guys just like to say awesome at movies and move it along, but it was not provocative to me. It didn't bring me into the movie further. I didn't feel like I had questions about what it was going for. It didn't feel interesting to me.
You know, I think what There Will Be Blood has, and a lot of movies on this list have, is a killer final scene.
Yeah.
And that really makes you realize that if you end well, you know, you can forgive almost anything that happens before that, because that ending is what sells it. Obviously, you know, plenty of people liked Anora, let's say. Anora didn't make the list. It's a pretty recent movie, so it was happening during our polling period. But Anora has that killer final scene. That's the thing, I think, ultimately that people were voting for when they voted that for Best Picture. Though it is interesting to see, there are fewer Best Picture winners on this list than you might think.
Mhm.
You know, there were only about a little less than a dozen, and a lot of Best Picture winners that didn't make that list. You know, no Birdman, no Crash, obviously.
No Coda. Oh.
No Coda, no
Oh.
Green Book,
No.
but also, you know, no The King's Speech.
Yeah.
All these movies that won many, many Oscars that were maybe the right movie for their moment. Our friend Hunter Pollard, he texted me and he said, you know, if you take the highest placing movie from each year since 2000, from the list, only 2 of those would be Best Picture winners. Only Parasite and Moonlight will be Best Picture winners that were the highest placing movie of their year. So it is kind of interesting, like if you're interested in a little bit of award season revisionism, to see, well, which movies have maybe stood the test of time better than the movies that actually won Best Picture.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the ending of Anora, because I feel like what probably clinched it winning Best Picture is, compared to The Brutalist, the one thing that movie really does wrong is the ending. You know, where it's like they wrap it up with some narration. Guy Pearce is like escaping that giant mansion and we don't find him. Like that's it. Like 3.5 hours of led up to that. I do wonder if they had nailed the landing, if that would have been a more obvious competitor for that award.
Another movie that has a great ending that I was excited to see on here was Melancholia.
Oh, but I mean, God, it's hard to believe that Kirsten Dunst may have a definitive work. But I think after all these years, Melancholia taps deepest into the reserves of both emotion and utter callousness she can bring to a role. You know,
is there anything that you would have liked to see on this?
Let's see. I mean, a lot of things I would have liked to have moved up. I would have liked something that's going to be on my list, on my revised list. A movie that I think has an amazing ending that not enough people talk about is the movie 2 Days, One Night with Marion Cotillard. Which, if you don't know this movie, first of all, it's extremely short, and it was a completely surprising Best Actress nomination at the time. I think the rumor was that people got that screener first and ended up watching it.
Maybe.
There's some magic to it. But anyway, it's about a woman who's going to lose her job unless she can convince all of her coworkers one at a time to not take their holiday bonuses so that the job can pay for her. And so it's this like woman pathetically groveling and also psychologically unraveling as she's trying to figure out how she's going to, you know, have money for her family, basically. But the ending of that movie is so simple and so touching and provocative and also real seeming. If we're going on endings alone, that should be on the list.
One movie that did not make the 100 at all, and I think a lot of people thought it might be in the top 20 as it was on the readers list, La La Land.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you think it deserved a place there?
I love the beginning of La La Land with the very added in freeway scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the very end with the sort of tribute to old Hollywood. But I think the conflicts between those characters are just not believable at all. And I don't understand why they're mad. Like when she's like, you were out of town or something. And then they didn't get to hang. Like, it's like, you both ambitious people. You should be aware you're going to be butting up against these problems as you get somewhere in Hollywood.
There were only, I think, about 11 films from female filmmakers. I would have liked to have seen more, but some pretty cool people represented.
You got Anatomy of a Fall is 26.
Yeah. Did that surprise you? It surprised me.
Well, I think in the past 5 years, it like Parasite, it's a movie that feels arty, but also is kind of commercial. Like anybody can tap into that movie, you know? So you get to congratulate yourself a little bit, I guess. But you know, the only thing I hate about Anatomy of a Fall?
Tell me.
The movie opens with, for some reason, on a black screen, and it says, "DidSheDoIt.com?" It like gives away the whole ghost of the movie right at the top. And also, what is that? Like, I'm supposed to go to that website?
You know, I saw that movie at the Cannes Film Festival premiere. Suffice it to say that they did not have that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Is that really? And they still have that up now.
I have no idea. It felt like a prank that someone put into the movie at my screening.
Like you're watching a legit true crime, like Netflix show.
Correct.
Wow, incredible.
And by the way, it takes you 2 seconds into the movie to realize, oh, it's about whether or not she did it, and that we're going to figure it out, and it's going to be nebulous or whatever. You don't need DidSheDoIt.com to appear.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that it was the highest ranking film from a female director, but maybe DidSheDoIt.com push that up a little bit higher.
Yes, that's right.
Once you've committed to a website, once you've committed to URL, you've committed to the movie.
Precisely. Another comedy that would have been nice to appear. I'm not saying it's like a brilliantly written comedy, but for what it produced in terms of quotability, would have been nice to see The Devil Wears Prada here.
I agree. I agree. Honestly, I think a lot of female-driven comedies, sans Bridesmaids, deserved a better placement. You know, whatever you thought of Barbie, you know, the fact that of the Barbenheimer battle, Oppenheimer was the only one to make the list. It made it at 65. Barbie made way fewer ballots than I would have expected. And I really do think people just tend to underrate those movies. Or maybe they don't ascribe that same sort of cultural importance to them. You know, I remember there was a list of the best comedies of the last 30 years or something. I think it was a British list, and it came out several years ago. Clueless wasn't on there. Mean Girls wasn't on there. Devil Wears Prada wasn't on there. Instead, Step Brothers was, you know, number 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. Step Brothers, great, fun, wonderful.
We thank you, Mary Steenburgen.
But again, come on. It's like there's this whole other world. Like, you know, I'm surprised that female-driven comedies still need to get their fair shake when they truly do become lexicon defining.
Yes, certainly. The director with the most films on the list is Christopher Nolan, followed by the Coen brothers, Alfonso Cuarón, Paul Thomas Anderson have 4, David Fincher and Quentin Tarantino have 3, then a whole bunch of other people have 2. Richard Linklater, only 2. Now, that's a little disappointing for me.
Yeah, well, I hope that David Fincher might take a look at this list and be like, do I really need to do the U.S. remake of Squid Game? Maybe I can get my mojo back and make great movies again. But it is interesting. I mean, there's obviously no denying that Christopher Nolan is sort of the Spielberg of this era. Alfonso Cuarón, you know, thrilled to see he had so many movies. That's another person where I'm like, come on, get your mojo back. Get out there. I think that especially right now when it's so hard to get any movie made, especially one that has a unique vision, God, there's almost a responsibility for some of these people to make a few more, you know, big screen entries. That's why even though, look, I'll watch Greta Gerwig's Narnia film for Netflix, I'm kind of like, come on, Greta, strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
You know, you're one of the few female filmmakers on this list at all. Certainly the one with the most like big studio cachet. Take advantage of it.
Right. But speaking of directors I thought would be better represented here, Peter Jackson only has 1 Lord of the Rings film here. Based on how, shall we say, male the list runs, I would have thought you'd have gotten all 3 of those movies, since they are certainly probably the most rewatched movies of the past 25 years.
And you definitely do on the readers list, you get all 3. I do think that sometimes people, when they're at least the people that we pulled from Hollywood, you know, if you only get 10 movies, how many films from a favorite trilogy are you going to put down? How many sequels at all? I think the first Lord of the Rings was sort of meant to stand in for the totality of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not the Hobbit movies, but, you know, the rest of them. So it does become an interesting thing. You've also got Black Panther there. You have the first Ocean's 11. You know, there are some films that did go on to spawn a franchise, although it is interesting to see that the only Pixar films that made the list, you know, Up, Ratatouille, WALL-E, are the films that didn't spawn sequels. In fact, to the extent that I think that Inside Out might have made that list if we hadn't just recently gotten an Inside Out 2.
Right. The highest animated movie on this list, by the way, is Spirited Away, which I think surprises nobody. But
Yes.
I was blown away that Toy Story 3 wasn't on this list, though.
Again, I think it's that sequel thing. People aren't really picking out that, second, third, or, in the case of Toy Story, this is a film franchise that's about to have its fifth movie come out.
Yeah.
I think that kind of does undercut these films somewhat in people's minds, or at least in the minds of voters when they're saying, well, what is the movie that I would, sort of take to my grave? Because this is a hard assignment. People think, oh, it would be easy. I know what movies I'd put on my 10. But, you start getting to the point where you can't believe you would leave that movie out. Or maybe you're eliminating this movie because this other movie you put is a little bit similar. So, are you going to put Toy Story 3 or are you going to put something like WALL-E?
Do people just resent the scene where we had to think about toys going into an incinerator? Like melted Woody face during that whole... I mean, like, I remember that's the only animated scene I've ever seen in a movie where I actually may have even said out loud, this is fucked up.
Yes, but I think that really works. Honestly,
No, I think the movie's great.
Yeah. I was thinking about it the other day, like back in the day when, Walt Disney was making live action movies, you would get things like Pollyanna or Old Yeller, and they all had incredibly fucked up endings where terrible things would happen to the protagonists. They'd have to shoot their dog, or they'd become, they'd fall out a window or something like that. And I think that these days, a lot of family movies are hesitant to engage with that. And of course, nobody does ultimately get incinerated, though that would be baller. But the fact that they're making peace with their imminent death is, yes, definitely not a thing that you would expect to see in a Toy Story movie. And honestly, one of the most memorable scenes in an animated movie, certainly that we've gotten in the last 25 years.
Right. I am still not over in WALL-E, the dystopian picture of everybody being fat. That is so crazy. Who made that choice?
But also robots loving Barbra Streisand.
Yes, no, true. Oh, yes, Hello
so
Dolly.
It balances out.
Though, is it the Streisand? Is it just the Louis Armstrong recording of Hello Dolly?
No, he watches
he watches the movie, yes. Directed by who?
You go ahead.
Gene Kelly.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, he watches the actual film, which I was just watching numbers from Hello Dolly at Quads in Palm Springs over the weekend.
Oh, if you haven't been to Palm Springs, you must go to Quads Broadway Bar, where they constantly update this rotation, but they're playing old scenes from musicals, generally speaking. Occasionally they'll play like something from like South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, but for the most part, you're going to see Hello Dolly and things like that.
Yes, or the Condoms Rose Condoms scene from Golden Girls.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Which did not make the list. Wouldn't have been eligible in any way, shape, or form, but still.
Exceptions can be made if you know the right people. That's our take on the official New York Times list, but when we're back, we'll reveal our own top 10 picks. And before that, some quick housekeeping. Summer reading alert. Amanda Littman's new book, When We're in Charge, is out now from Crooked Reads. It's a guidebook to leadership for the next generation from the founder of Run for Something and the newest release from Crooked's publishing imprint. When We're in Charge makes a great gift for new grads, friends celebrating a big promotion, or anyone looking to up their beach reading game this summer. Plus, you can complete your book look with a We Do Not Dream of Labor tote, perfect for anyone who wishes every day was a summer Friday. Just head to crooked.com/store for the exclusive tote bundle, or head straight to crooked.com/books to get the book. All right, when we're back, Kyle and I share our favorite films of the 21st century, and if you disagree, you're weird. Keep It is brought to you by Strawberry.me. We spend about a third of our waking hours working, and yet so many people feel stuck in jobs they've outgrown or never really wanted in the first place. What if the next move is even worse? I've already put years into this place. Isn't everyone kind of miserable at work? All of those feelings are real, but they're also why so many people stay stuck. That's where today's sponsor, Strawberry.me, comes in. They connect you with a certified career coach who helps you go from where you are to where you actually want to be. Whether you're looking for a change, feeling stuck, facing a big decision, or just seeking professional growth, it's like therapy for your career. A coach helps you cut through the noise, define your next move, and turn vague goals into a real-world plan with the kind of accountability that keeps you moving forward. Plus, their coaches are thoroughly vetted and assessed for their qualifications and expertise and come from a wide range of backgrounds, experiences, and specializations. Don't leave your career to chance. Take action. Own your future with a coach in your corner. Go to strawberry.me/keepit to claim your $50 credit and get started. That's strawberry.me/keepit. Stop settling. Start building the career you actually want. Keep It is brought to you by Helix. You're aware by this point that I love my Helix mattress, but what do I dream about while I'm sleeping on my Helix mattress? I've had a recurring dream ever since I was a child, and I did not tell her this when she was a guest on the show, that Valerie Bertinelli was friends with my mom. I don't know where this began. I don't know why I thought this. I was so into the show one day at a time that I felt like I knew her, And then when I actually got to meet her when she was a guest on this show, it should have been creepier for her. But luckily, no one briefed her on my dreamscape that involves her. Helix knows there's no better way to test out a new mattress than by sleeping on it in your own home. That's why they offer a 100-night trial and a 10 to 15-year warranty to try out your new Helix mattress. Now, everybody's unique, and everybody sleeps differently. That's why Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. Take the Helix Sleep Quiz and find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. My sleep quiz results are unchanged. There's nothing to update you on here. I am a midnight Lux, and it feels sensational. I sleep on my side, and occasionally I do crush my elbow a little bit, but that's part of the Germanic thing in my brain that needs a little bit of pain to keep going. The best part? Your personalized mattress is shipped straight to your door free of charge. Go to helixsleep.com/keepit for 27% off site-wide exclusive for listeners of Keep It. That's helixsleep.com/keepit for 27% off. This is a site-wide exclusive for listeners of Keep It. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/keepit. We're back, and it's the time we've all been waiting for. So, Kyle, what are your top 10 films of the century? And keep in mind, I'll be angry at the drop of a hat.
And I hope to inflame you. So I was actually one of the very first people who cast my ballot. So I was very curious to see how many of these movies are going to make the top 100. Like I said, one of them totally surprised me, Y Tu Mama Tambien. I also voted for Mad Max Fury Road, shocker. Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
Lost in Translation.
Okay.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
We're staying on the rails so far. Yes.
12 Years a Slave. And Call Me By Your Name.
I just want to say that, by the way, 12 Years a Slave is almost underrated now in retrospect. Like,
yes.
we at the time, it was like, oh, this is a very serious movie. It's a very violent movie with a bunch of good performances in it. But I want to say it's one of the best pictures of the past 25 years for sure.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that it's rated a little bit lower than it might normally be because it's not the movie that you would leap to rewatch.
Yeah.
It's a harrowing experience, but it's a foundational movie. And you're absolutely correct. One of our best picture winners.
Also, I don't know if you saw Sarah Paulson in Appropriate recently, a couple years ago. She was in the play for which she won a Tony. But in that play, she established herself as just Laurie Metcalf. Like, she's just simply Laurie Metcalf now. And that movie is what Laurie Metcalf is for Scream 2, is what that is for Sarah Paulson. She, in that movie, is so fucking scary. And scarier than she ever was in any of the American Horror Stories. Not that I watched them. But it reminds you that she has a certain power that we have sort of lost to her kind of quirkier roles recently.
Lewis, I want to thank you because I think you articulated something that we all felt as a culture, but we're too reluctant to say, which is we were all thinking about Laurie Metcalf in Scream 2 when we watched 12 Years a Slave.
I only have so many references. Yes, that's what...
So I had those 7 that made the list, and I had 3 other picks that did not make the list, which are devastating. 2 of them are movies that feature one of my favorite things, which is an Oscar-winning actress reacting emotionally to opera.
Sure. Birth?
Yes, an
Birth,
Oarito, if you're into acronyms. Birth with Nicole Kidman reacting emotionally to opera. And Margaret with Anna Paquin reacting emotionally to opera. 2 very underrated films. I would have thought that Birth would make this list because I feel like, it's got one of the best single takes of all time. The camera is just focused on Nicole Kidman as she goes through the gamut of absolutely everything in her actress arsenal. Margaret, if you have not seen, please do. A very underrated movie that was sort of like caught up in all sorts of behind the scenes infighting. Anna Paquin, Matt Damon, Mark Ruffalo, all sorts of incredible people. It's written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan, who did Manchester by the Sea. It is one of my favorite movies. It is so funny. Watch the theatrical version, though not the extended.
That's, I think, another thing that kind of scared people off is at the time it was known for being a very long movie and also very polarizing. Like, you might totally reject this movie wholesale. And then,
yes, if you're, an infidel. But it's very funny too. And I think anybody with half a brain, which is everybody listening to this podcast, would love it. My 10th movie, also devastating that it didn't make the list, but it continues to be very underrated, is 20th Century Women. Starring Annette Bening. She does not react emotionally to opera in it, but if that happened in a deleted scene, I wouldn't be shocked. It is a great, wonderful humanist movie directed by Mike Mills, who also was one of the voters for our project. He put One of Them Days as one of his 10 favorite movies since 2000, which I loved that pick.
So, first of all, I just want to say about that movie, SZA in that movie is one of the great musician turned actor performances. To say she holds her own is like completely, it's underrating her. She is fabulous in that movie. I also put 20th Century Women
Look
on
at
my
you.
list. If you haven't seen this movie, it was in the famous Oscar year where people mostly talk about how Amy Adams didn't get the nomination for Arrival, but Annette Bening also didn't get a nomination for this movie,
and it's something she should have won for.
Yeah, first of all, just a period in time I love. It takes place around what, like 1980 or something, I'm gonna say.
I thought the period of time that you loved would just be Annette Bening in overalls.
That's which is just eras. Yes, right. But that is the only screener I have ever watched, and I was with my friends Gus and Mason while we watched it, that we clapped at the screener afterwards. Truly brain rot behavior. But his movie before that was Beginners with Christopher Plummer, and he, of course, won the Oscar for
yes, that. And you would have thought that mojo would extend to Annette, but overlooked.
What do you think of his movie Come On, Come On with Joaquin Phoenix?
Didn't love it quite as much, but I will always ride and die for Mike Mills.
And I fucking love Gabby Hoffman in that movie.
Yes, well, Gabby Hoffman in any movie, put her in more.
Yes, right. Okay, my list. Parasite is also on mine.
Okay.
Also, you know what must be said about a movie that's arty, and also funny, and also an adventure, and has so much in it. So rewatchable. Like when I watched it, I was like, oh, I want to show this to people and then see their reactions while I watch that. And I can't say I have that feeling about many of the movies on the list.
If Parasite was on at a bar, everyone eventually would just be watching Parasite.
Yes, there we are. The Zone of Interest. Which Jonathan Glazer, also who did Birth.
Yeah.
That movie year, which was 2023, I was waiting for something to really, really hit. And that was, to me, a movie with a concise, strong statement, and yet also a layer of very dark humor. Right. Regarding like, wow, these people are really wrapped up in some unimportant minutia as the Holocaust occurs next door to them. It's almost like a Far Side comic or something.
Yeah, I don't know if you had this feeling while watching it, but I was often reminded of Jada Pinkett Smith in Scream 2. Yeah.
Yes, as in getting murdered. Oh, while people aren't paying attention. Yes.
Well, or it was a Laurie Metcalf.
Okay. Oh, I could do this all day, bitch.
I love that you took it seriously.
And by the way, what movie theater is that shot in?
The Vista.
The Vista in LA. Yes. Okay. The Writer, Chloe Zhao.
That's a good pick. That is a good pick. You know.
And by the way, I stand Nomadland too, and I won't stand for people who don't like Nomadland.
Nomadland did not make the 100, which is interesting because Chloe Zhao is, one of our top tier female directors right now. But The Writer is her best movie. That is taste, Lewis. That is taste.
Thank you. Yeah, it's about a rodeo star who eventually suffers an injury and what occurs in his life. I feel like you're watching life actually occur. I don't know what else to say about it. It's like there's a tenderness to all the performances, and as Chloe Zhao is apt to do, there's lots of non-actors in it.
Yes, and when a handsome man suffers but doesn't know how to express that emotionally, I'm riveted.
Oh, shall we talk about ordinary people for the 90th time on the show? Drive My Car, which is one of the fabulous. I mean, it's a very epic movie, but there's a lot. Every performance is fabulous. We've talked a lot about that. 45 Years is one of my favorite movies, starring Charlotte Rampling. It's about a woman who is in this marriage for 45 years. Here's a bit of information about her husband pertaining to right before their marriage, and it just unseats everything she thought she knew about her own life. And Charlotte Rampling has one of these. The face that's coming to mind is Lauren Bacall-like faces, where every feature is so big so that even like the slightest soupçon of sadness registers in like Jumbotron ways. And watching just her face react to the smallest things in this movie that are seismic behind the eyes is so specifically fabulous.
If 45 years had not been on your ballot, I would have done a wellness check.
Right.
Like,
where's the Lewis I know?
Lewis and I know that, like, if he's ever taken hostage and he's on a phone call and I say, what are your 10 favorite movies since 2000? If he does not mention 45 years, I know to send the police.
Right. And an alien has taken over my body. Right. You know what I put on this list? Maria Full of Grace.
Okay.
With Catalina Sandina Moreno from 2004, about a woman who decides to traffic drugs over the border by swallowing them. So I just want to say, as somebody who doesn't like swallowing pills, period, it is extremely traumatic. So maybe that's what registered with me. 20th Century Women. The one I might switch out for 2 Years, One Night is Everybody Wants Some is on my list.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know you were such a stan.
Yeah. Okay. If you've not seen this movie, I think I talked about it in the past couple of weeks. It's about a bunch of guys at like a college where they play baseball, and it's just about the 3 days before the semester begins. So they have nothing to do but party.
Mhm.
And I think it's just the rare slice of life movie that is also a total blast. I feel like slice of life movies tend to be like, you know, you learn something about the human condition, but ultimately it's about how life's a little boring. And this is not boring at all. And you love how like stupid and horny and frustrated and like juvenile they are. It really puts you in an ecosystem.
Yeah. Richard Linklater, one of our premier filmmakers, where you come out of the movie being like, maybe I do like straight men.
Yeah.
Maybe they should
Are they
run,
cool?
Maybe they should run the country?
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh, yeah. And in this movie, it seems like they all have really great taste in music because it's 1981 and they're all
Right.
listening to fun stuff. Phantom Thread is on my list.
Perfect. Great movie, absolutely. And I do think Phantom Thread is one of those movies that is just going to rise in estimation like the further we get from it. You know, There Will Be Blood being in top 5, that feels like an unshakable pick these days. But Phantom Thread, for my money, that's what I'd rather see as the highest place
Me
in Paul
too.
Thomas Anderson.
And it's like 25 on this list, so it's not like it totally fell off or anything. But I just, first of all, it's one of the great gay-coded straight performances from Daniel Day-Lewis, who is a fashion designer named Reynolds Woodcock.
Mhm.
And he's just prissy in a way that straight men aren't anymore. He feels like a classic a fashion designer in that way. But when his wife, who's like learning how to adjust her temperament and attitudes to appease him, who is this like very kind of introverted creator type, he says at one point, "I can't begin my day with a confrontation," and just they can only be described as cuntiness. What he does with the role, and as you know, Daniel Day-Lewis once upon a time would play roles like My Beautiful Laundrette. We could expect queerness from him, so it felt like such a return to a universe I'd never see him go back to in this movie.
Yes, and kind of vertigo coded. Like, I wish Kim Novak could have just, you know, taken some cues from Phantom Thread and poisoned Jimmy Stewart in
Yes.
the third act of that movie.
And then that would teach him to love her more
Yeah.
and need her. Yes. And of course, the fabulous Leslie Manville is in this too. And then, of course, I also picked Carol, which I think, speaking of rewatchable, people are like, I consider Carol a Christmas movie. I can't imagine watching it at any other time. It's like one of the great Christmas movies.
So you wait till Christmas to
certainly,
watch Carol?
certainly.
Uh-huh.
Because like,
Do you carol while watching Carol?
I don't have that bravery. I don't even like to pretend to sing. I can't. But I think something else you and I have in common is standing Rooney Mara, who I find to be underrated in that it's like, I think people want from actresses, generally speaking, only vulnerability, or they want only comedy. And she is not going to give you all the hints to what's going on with her character. So I feel like she's closer to what I expect from people in real life.
Well, something else we have in common, and you recently expressed this on Keep It, is standing Kate Mara.
Yes.
Who is also a great actress, and she was fantastic in Brokeback Mountain, has been great ever since, and I think deserves some of the opportunities that Rooney is getting. But I do love Rooney Mara. Like, somehow after Dancer in the Dark, the actress spirit of Bjork got reincarnated in a rich football team heiress, and we've got Rooney.
Yes. Whatever she's doing with Kate, by the way, they're in some movie where they're in like a still
I think
together.
a Werner Herzog film.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am so scared and ready.
Exactly that.
Let
exactly
us go.
those emotions.
And by the way, we talked about this last week because it was the 20th anniversary of Brokeback Mountain, but I would also consider putting that on my list. I don't think there's a wrong note in that movie. And we treated it at the time like, oh, it's a little overlong or it's a stretched out short story. But I personally think every note of it was well done, including the ending, which is fabulous.
Well, I love that you said every note because I went and watched the re-release too. And then as soon as I heard the first note of the score, I was bawling.
Yes, you are right.
It was like
right
a
in
Pavlovian
it.
response.
Yes, right. Oh,
Yeah.
that music is so specific. And also the jukebox choices are so specific.
It's
like
great.
The A Love That'll Never Grow Old by Emmylou Harris. And yeah, lovely.
Great soundtrack. Great Anne Hathaway lipstick on the teeth performance.
Yes. Oh, and also Anne Hathaway on the phone, my darling.
I mean, Anne Hathaway in those wigs.
Right.
What was so interesting about rewatching it is that, you know, so many of these people are playing much older than they were at the time, except unfortunately, sadly, Heath Ledger. For the rest of them, we can sort of compare that against the people that they became. And Anne Hathaway was nailing that sort of like later in life grand dame
Yes.
feel that character would have, and that to some extent Miss Hathaway possesses.
Jake Gyllenhaal still only one Oscar nomination, and it's Brokeback Mountain. How do you feel about that?
Well, he's not going to get it for doing Guy Ritchie movies.
Yeah, it's so upsetting.
I don't know what's happening there.
Have you seen the movie The Man from U.N.C.L.E. recently?
Yes, I have. That was one of the better ones. Wait, are you going to go in?
It's a very entertaining movie
Yes.
and looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The performances are such trash, and I'm talking about Alicia. I'm talking about
Army
Hammer.
Henry Cavill.
Yes.
So you like everything about it except any of the people in
Like,
it.
can we get another take on that stiff ass fucking line reading? But again, it's like a gorgeous Lincoln commercial or something. Like, I'm not really in it for the performances.
Yeah, but it is baffling. I don't know what's happening with Jake Gyllenhaal's career. I guess he just decided he needed to make money at some point. But, you know, just like, though I liked him in Michael Bay's Ambulance, I don't quite know
too. Yes.
where he's heading now.
Yeah, and when he takes too broad of character roles in like Okja or Velvet Buzzsaw, I'm like, that's not right either.
Look, God bless the big swings. But can we get back to that sort of like Brokeback era Jake that was just making immaculate choices at all times?
I think maybe we praised him too much for Nightcrawler, and he's like, but I can do other crazy things too. And I'm like, what if you did other sane things?
Okay, but you know what? Nightcrawler. I
No,
should
that
have
was
put that
that
on my
girl.
ballot.
Yeah.
I should have put that on my ballot.
Well, also Riz Ahmed, who is like down low the hottest person.
Yes.
We treat him like he's just a good actor. Wrong. He should be objectified.
And does one of the best American accents. Better American accents than actual Americans.
Right. Yeah.
Does a better American accent than January Jones, and she is American.
Wow. I would say we call that Tony Colletting when you can successfully or maybe you should say Sarah Snooking. She really is the queen of that right now.
Yeah, he snooked. He snooked real hard.
Those are our choices. Please disagree with us, because actually, if you agree with us, I have nothing to say. We're just the same. When we're back, the fabulous and Emmy-winning Ty Burrell. This week's guest is arguably the best TV dad of the century. Take that, Neil Flynn on the middle. He's a two-time Emmy winner for his role as Phil Dunphy in Modern Family, and now he's putting his golden voice to use as the narrator of his new audiobook, The Good Life. Please welcome to Keep It, Ty Burrell.
Hi.
So psyched to have you. I mean, like, I was just at Fire Island and with a bunch of friends, and we replayed Modern Family, which I think might be the most replayable show on the planet. Like, you just put it on, and suddenly 9 episodes have slipped past.
I don't know if my kids would agree, but I'm happy to hear that. It's kind of crazy, the very, very young people that seem to be discovering it now after all these years. But it's always kind of comforting to know that it to some degree holds up, and I always try to relay that to the writers because they never hear that enough. But
it is actually sort of a relief these days that certain things from the past just randomly bubble up and people kind of have no idea that they were even old. Like
Yeah.
Dreams by Fleetwood Mac is about to hit the Spotify top 10 again.
Is
It's
it
like,
really?
we already had the resurgence. How can it possibly resurge? You know?
There was the moment like 5-6 years ago, right, with a guy being
on the skateboard. Yes,
yeah.
right. And that wasn't enough. We're
wasn't
still
enough.
dreaming. Yeah, thunder's still only happening when it's raining. Anyway, okay. So this Audible original is it's a story, acted out sitcom basically, but it's about your childhood. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, this seems like it would be less work than filming a sitcom because there's no visual element. But at the same time, because of the way audio was recorded, you can do every single line within a single sequence of dialogue millions of times to get it right, the way you might do animation. So which is actually more taxing?
I think this is easier.
Yeah, okay.
I love it because, I basically don't have to leave my home, and I'm very much a homebody. But it's kind of all the good stuff, and without necessarily having to like travel.
Yeah.
Like, it's very creative. Katie Rich was our director, and she's just a blast. So to your point, like, you can end up doing, bunches and bunches of takes, but it's all really fun. It's all kind of like seeing, just kind of like what works and what doesn't. And it is the same, you're right, it is the same process of making a sitcom, essentially. It's just that the execution of it, I don't have to wear pants.
I see. A victory for you.
Yeah.
Ty, what was it about the way that you grew up that made you think there's a show here?
It was very much this store that we bought. My dad and his brother bought this truly remarkable little store out in a town of 200 people in a a province called Applegate, Oregon. And the store had, it was the entire town. It was the grocery store, it was the gas station, it was a cafe, it was the post office, it was the library, it was the fire department, there was a fire truck there, it was a hardware store. It was sort of like all of these things that you could kind of like manufacture to make a sitcom, and you would actually, because you kind of want all your locations in one spot. But it just happened to be the way that we grew up, and many of the stories that are in The Good Life in the Audible series are taken from our childhood. And it was, like you hear a lot of people of my generation say, we were completely feral kids, and it was very fun to revisit it. My brother and I have been tinkering around with this idea for a long time, feeling like it should be a show, but this format really ended up being kind of perfect for it.
What went into the casting for this? Because you have people like Jennifer Garner plays your mom. You've got Colton Dunn on this show. Jillian Bell, Egon Wadham's on this show. What was it like casting, alleged or I guess real figures from your life? Was it important for you that they actually resembled the people they once were, or were you like, well, take creative
really
license?
Yeah, we kind of went away from. In reality, it was two families. We really, especially once Jen was on board, I think, we really want to lean into the mom character. My mom was an educator, and really in some ways is the person who was sort of the glue of that whole thing, kept the store going. But this became more, in some ways, it was like, well, we can't really try to replicate our family, because also they'll be so pissed that we're, basically making jokes at their expense. But also Jeremy Hall is a great writer and wrote this. It kind of helped to have him have his own version of it, if that makes sense. So it's not just me saying like, well, that isn't how it was, or that isn't how that person was. A lot of it, I think, benefits from him being able to, kind of envision his own characters.
Ty, there is that fun sitcom rhythm to this show, though. I know you said that this audio format works really well, but if a network wanted to pick it up, maybe wanted to cast you as your dad, would you be interested?
Yeah, I think Audible is definitely, doing more of this in terms of making these into TV shows. And I think I'm too old to play my dad, but I'd love to narrate it, on television as well. I think you're right. It's a sitcom. It's a sitcom on Audible, and I can't praise Jen Garner enough. I really wish she would do one. I wish she would do a sitcom, because she's so good in this. And she's such a kind of natural for this type of rhythm, like you just said. I think, we're so happy to have made it. And if there are more of these on Audible, then great. And if it becomes a TV show, then that would be great too.
Thinking back to the synergy you had with Julie Bowen on Modern Family, mysteriously one time I had the pleasure of being on set of that show, because I write for Jimmy Kimmel Live, and we did a thing. At the end of that show, we did a little bit where Jimmy was the fake documentarian who was interviewing all the characters on Modern Family, and so I got to see you and Julie basically glance at the script, put it down, shove it behind the pillows you were sitting near, and then do 5 versions in a row of the script that were all totally different. It was crazy to see, and it was just obviously
so
how you operate. And I was wondering if you just missed the synergy you have or had with her, and then 2, how much of a pleasure that is, or how hard is that?
I'll tell you, that's so astute. Like, it's the thing that I miss the most. Like, I've taken a long break, and it's been great. Like, I have no regrets, but I have gotten the itch again recently a little bit, and that's the thing that I actually miss. I miss the in between the shots, the kind of like between each other. Julie was an incredible partner. And you remember from being the writer, we all come out and kind of put our heads together, go do another take. It's different. The take's always different. That to me is like the purest form of what makes it just so joyful. And I do miss that. I genuinely miss that. I don't miss a lot of the other stuff, but that moment that you just described, I really do miss, and I miss doing it with Julie. And I would say, like, you came in after 200 and whatever episodes, right? It was kind of crazy towards the end how much of that process gets in your bones, to the point at which there are little packets of our script sides stuffed all over set, because you would kind of like, I hope it, it wasn't like laziness. I think in some ways it just kind of like got into your bones about how to try to put together a few takes quickly. No, you captured a moment. So
there would be scripts hanging out of like sea cushions. It was like Emily Dickinson and poems all over her estate.
Yeah. That's super fun. That is a super fun moment.
Ty, what went into that break? I remember reading an interview with you not long after Modern Family ended, where you said you were still debating whether you wanted to perform or not. So take us into both sides of that debate.
Well, I've always I love the creative part of what we do. I grew up in a home where my dad was always at home. He was a family therapist, so that's a little bit like the Good Life, the podcast. But my dad was always home, and he wanted to be home, or at least it appeared he wanted to be home. And I love being at home. I love being around my family, and it's not altruistic. It's genuinely like selfish. I like being at home, and there's no way. I live in Utah. There's really no way to work and not be gone, except for stuff like this, which is fantastic. So that's a big part of it. It really is a big part of it. I felt like I'd kind of just been so lucky with my career. I really just got so lucky to kind of check off a lot of the boxes in theater and film that I kind of hoped to be a part of. So yeah, that's kind of like the nutshell of why I've taken the break. But I will say, like, I have recently, and some of it is doing this podcast, I have kind of gotten the itch a little bit. I think my kids are ready for me to go. They're teenagers. The level of eye rolls right now tells me that it wouldn't be the worst thing if I go work during the week and fly home. But yeah, that's kind of where my headspace has been.
And you're starting to miss those 5 a.m. call times?
That I don't miss. But yeah, the putting your heads together with really funny people, and that part I am kind of missing.
You also have a bunch of scattered, strange film roles that continue to fascinate me. Foremost among them, looking in my eyes and sensing the gayness in my voice. Do you know what movie I'm about to bring up?
Fur?
Yes.
Wow. You're an ally, Ty.
Where you played the husband, Deanne Arbus, played by Nicole Kidman, in one of her strangest
pronounced.
Yes,
pronounced.
Yeah, thank you. Kyle said beforehand he wanted to be the first to pronounce it correctly, and I beat him. So
I'll bequeath it to you.
But that is among. First of all, I just want to say about Nicole Kidman. After she won this Oscar, she did a bunch of strange movies, and this was one of them. But I really can't compare that movie to any other, and I was wondering what your experience on that movie was like.
It was incredible. It was such a big break for me. I mean, I was doing exclusively theater at that point. I'd done a couple of guest roles on Law and Order, which, you know, was a thing in New York back then. It was like, you know, going to the DMV was doing a Law and Order. And Steve Shainberg literally took a massive risk on me just from auditioning, you know. And I'd loved Secretary. I thought that movie was just incredible.
Oh, which was written by Aaron Cressida Wilson, who wrote this. Yes, right.
Yeah. Wow, good. So I just was like, you know, I was thrilled. I mean, I would have taken, if we're being honest, I would have taken any job. It wasn't like I was at a place where I was like, you know, do I want to take this risk on this kind of odd film? It was like, no, it's this movie with Nicole Kidman and Robert Downey Jr. And I also, though, was an Arbus fan. You know, I was living in New York, and her street, you know, presence, I just mean in terms of like, you saw her photographs all over, you know, like it just felt like I saw them, you know, there would be obviously exhibits, but they just kind of, they're sort of ubiquitous in New York, and she was just so brilliant. So I did have that. Yeah, so I was just thrilled. I went in like, I had no reservations at all. Just like, I was so excited to be there. She could not have been more lovely. So she really took care of me. I think she knew how nervous I was. She was a great leader. Like what you're looking for on a call sheet, you know, for number one is a level-headed, kind of kind person, and she absolutely is all of that. Like, just a wonderful, wonderful leader. And that set was a little bit, got to be chaotic because there became issues. I mean, it's far enough away now that I can, you know, say this stuff, but there became issues between the financing, the producer, and the director. And she had to kind of, you know, come in, you know, mitigate, facilitate, and she was brilliant at it. So I have great memories of that movie. The movie, I don't know, you know, I haven't seen it in so long, but yeah, it was an incredible experience.
I'm surprised there'd be any financial issues for such a straight down the middle
Yes.
mainstream pitch like her.
Yeah, and also that it wasn't just about her life. It was also a fable about her life, and like it wasn't even her life was strange enough, but then it was turned into a fable, and that was actually one of the debates. Was the finance folks wanted it put into the title that it was a fable. I think that was in the title,
right?
For
the long
a
title.
fable,
Yes,
yeah.
right. Mm-hmm.
An imaginary tale or something like that. But yeah, it ended up getting a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But yeah, I had an incredible experience.
One of my favorite other unique facts about you, Ty, is that you're something of a bar entrepreneur in Utah, which I don't think many people can claim to be. You have 4 bars you've opened in Utah. You saw a need and you filled it.
Yeah, well, I wish I could take credit for that. We have a wonderful third-generation business person here in Utah who saw the opening. When the liquor laws normalized here in 2008 or 2009, a lot of people don't know that they ever did normalize, but they did. And it was kind of, you know, when Prohibition era cocktail bars started up, you know, in New York and LA. And it was his idea that we, you know, open one in Salt Lake, and it really, you know, my brother and several other really smart people have made them what they are. I show up and get patted on the back for other people's work at these bars, which, you know, I'm sure drives my brother bonkers. But I really haven't done much. I think I love them though. I think they're really wonderful, but I can't take credit for them. But yeah, it's an unusual thing. People still, when they hear that we're bar owners in Utah, are still kind of like confused that there are bars in Utah. I don't know the last time you guys were in or if you've ever been to Salt Lake City, but there's actually a pretty thriving bar scene here now.
Oh, I imagine there's some pent-up something there waiting to be unleashed psychologically.
Yeah, yes, there's room for it.
Ty, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure seeing and hearing you, and I hope this project takes on other forms,
Yeah,
some visual
thanks.
in the future.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Great chatting with you guys.
What a pleasure.
Keep It is brought to you by ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. I love a pre-alcohol moment, okay? Because you're going to drink the alcohol, but what do you do before? I need a pregame to the pregame. And it's also helpful when that pregame keeps you from waking up drunk the next day. Because, listen, I enjoy the often night out, but I don't love when it lingers to the next day. And that's why I look to ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, and it was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Okay, here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this product down. So just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your absolute best tomorrow. Listen, I'm on Fire Island, so I obviously have been having a lot of drinks. I have been trying not to wake up hungover, and literally, I forgot the Z-Biotics, but friends of mine in the house brought Z-Biotics, and we all made sure to drink some before the night started. So I did not wake up with a hangover. And listen, summer is here, which means more opportunities to celebrate the warm weather. And before that backyard barbecue brew, glass of Pinot, watching the sunset at the beach, or cocktail by the campfire, or Hugo Spritz at the pool at Fire Island, don't forget your Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Drink one before drinking and wake up feeling great and ready to take on the next day and all that the summer has to offer. Go to zbiotics.com/keepit to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Keep It at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/keepit and use the code KEEPIT at checkout for 15% off.
And now we come to the special segment of Keep It. It's Keep It, where we yell Keep It at things that piss us off. And now Kyle is going to join our ranks and tell us what's been bothering him recently. What's your Keep It, Kyle?
Okay, so my Keep It goes out to something I love, but something that could be better, which is the thing that really pisses you off when it's like you're so close. And that is Survivor. In particular, Survivor 50, which just finished filming. It brings back all these legends from the previous 49 seasons of the show, but one legend did not even get a courtesy call. And I'm speaking of the goddess herself, Parvati Shallow. She was on CBS This Morning this week, and she said that nobody from the show reached out to her to see if she wanted to play again. Now, if you don't know Parvati, this woman is a Survivor legend. She was also recently on The Traitors. Great on that. Also, Deal or No Deal Island, if that's the way you swing.
Which some people fucking stand.
There are people who ride hard for that.
Yeah.
Yes, who knows? Maybe if I have 40 hours, I'll give it a try. But, like, to not even give Parvati a courtesy call, this is like, to give an example, this is like if the Oscars, when they do their 100th anniversary ceremony, they don't even send Meryl Streep a particle link. Like when I tell you that Parvati's double idol play on Heroes vs. Villains, that was an Immaculate Conception level event.
Here's the thing. I don't even watch that show, and I remember that episode.
Yes, that birthed an entire generation. That was so powerful that even people who were already born were birthed by that double idol play. So, like, I don't get it. I do think that Jeff Probst, who hosts Survivor, and who I do love, like, he's sometimes a little punitive about not having people back if they've gone and done other reality shows. Like Carolyn, who was on The Traitors last season, also iconically was not asked back, or at least didn't make the cut for Survivor 50, which is absurd. That's such a no-brainer pick. Like, again, that's like the Oscars saying, well, we're not going to invite Nicole Kidman because she just did season 2 of 9 Perfect Strangers. Like, no, you invite Nicole Kidman just like you invite Carolyn, just like you invite Parvati. Like, at least give Parvati a courtesy call, because Ohana means family.
Oh.
And I learned that from Jurassic World Rebirth.
And also, like, It's just so weird that they wouldn't invite them, because it's like, do you really want the idea that you don't respect these people out in the world? I mean, these, when I think of Survivor, it's about the legendary characters.
Yes.
Like, people are not really being like, oh, that challenge where they had to like throw a barrel at something was amazing. Like, no one's really impressed by the actual dynamics of the show. It's the people they have on and how those people are responsible for evolving the show, turning it into this thing it totally wasn't in season 1.
Parvati is a great ambassador for the show. Her beautiful face should be carved on the Survivor Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
So at least keep her happy and make her feel like part of the family, and keep the fans happy. They love Parvati. So come on, the courtesy call.
And also, you know what? They really should have her on the Traitors again. I liked her on that season, but I felt like people ended up not liking her or something. And it's like, no, I think we need to come away from a Parvati experience feeling effervesced. And it felt, I don't know, the tang on that season wasn't all that.
Well, the good thing is she's sort of on this somewhat spin-off-y Survivor thing. Survivor Australia, which many people swear by, is doing an Australia versus the World season. I think it's coming out later this summer, early fall, and she's on that. She was teasing it to me, saying that there's a lot of great stuff on that show, that she plays in a way that should excite people. So at least we have that to look forward to, if not Survivor 50.
Mm-hmm. Very good. My Keep It is a little more distressing than this. My Keep It goes to somebody I really have no problem with, and in the realm of Benson Boone, I believe people should do tricks as they perform. But this does go to JoJo Siwa, who is, as I've said before, has hair energy. H-A-R-E. Picture like, somebody on Tiny Toon Adventures, like gone absolutely amok. Like if we like only fed them with sugar-free Red Bulls.
Right.
That's JoJo Siwa. JoJo Siwa is on my last nerve. She is allegedly considering releasing, she played a clip of this and is considering releasing it and said, should I release this? And it's her singing Betty Davis Eyes. Now, let me say something. The idea that someone like JoJo Siwa would even know who Betty Davis is, let alone care about her famous eyes that she broadcasts so brilliantly in movies like Jezebel and The Little Foxes and now Voyager.
Let alone know who Kim Carnes is.
Right. Does she? We don't know.
I don't know. How'd she come to this?
I have no idea. She showed a clip of this. Not only does it sound bad in auto-tune, she imitates the Kim Carnes rasp, which, by the way, is not essential to singing the song. And Kim Carnes is just a very genuinely raspy singer. Like somebody said, we want to do Rod Stewart, but we want them to be a hot lady. And can they also have been in the new Christy Minstrels with Kenny Rogers? And that's how Kim Carnes came to be. But I found JoJo Siwa's vocal Kim contrived and not the genuine article. And if you're looking for a great cover of Betty Davis Eyes, don't worry, I can think of two. One, Gwyneth Paltrow does a cover of Betty Davis Eyes from what, Kyle?
Duets.
Duets.
With Huey Lewis.
That is right. Maybe his greatest screen role.
The only movie that has both Gwyneth Paltrow and Huey Lewis, but maybe there should be more.
That's how I feel. Gwyneth is just such a sweet vocalist. Country Strong, not a great movie. Duets, a worse movie, but I love the soundtrack. And I actually prefer that version of Cruisin' to the Smokey Robinson version, which feels very rad to say in this era where we don't like Smokey Robinson anymore.
I'm very curious to hear who your other best cover is of that song, because I've got a dark horse.
Okay. Leighton Meester covered it in about 2008. It was around that time when she was like palling around with Cobra Starship, I think. So there was maybe some entertainment of a real singing career. But they really like sped it up and made it a more electronified song. I just also love that song in general. It's such a weird single to like really pop off. I think it was the biggest single of that year in 1981. And just the lyrics sounds like a gay man unhelpfully describing a suspect to police.
Well, Lewis, when I tell you, I first encountered Betty Davis Eyes as a child thinking it was an Alvin and the Chipmunks original.
Slay.
It was on an Alvin and the Chipmunks album that my parents got me. Suffice it to say, they were not replicating the Kim Carnes rasp. They were talking like chipmunks. But you know what? They slayed.
You're telling me Alvin and Simon and Theodore were like, let me tell you about Greta Garbo's standout size.
They sure did. So, if JoJo could involve some of the chipmunks, maybe I'd be willing to forgive somewhat. She also is now embracing this sort of trad wife aesthetic to her vibe. It's giving, but I'm a cheerleader. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
No. Again, if I see her at a Pride event and she's doing her, I'm going to go with round-offs, I'm having a good time. But there is something about her that I think kind of needs to be reined into artistry. And again, the fake rasp of it's just not pleasing to hear. In fact, is Kim Carnes our only raspy female vocalist?
I think you're forgetting that Scarlett Johansson cut an album with Pete Yorn.
Oh, yeah, and also has that Tom Waits cover album.
There's that.
Right. Wow, I forgot all about her. Also, I forgot about Pete Yorn. Yes, I remember 2003.
Yeah.
And people like Ben Yellen. And bands like Jet.
Oh God, Jet. Yeah.
Good.
Do you want to be my girl? Is that the Jet song?
Are you going to be my girl?
Are you gonna? Yes, thank you for the semantic correction there.
Great
well, I
black
need
or
to
white
know
video.
it right if I do it at karaoke.
That's right.
That's a good deep pull for karaoke.
What is your karaoke pick these days?
I just did a whole bunch of karaoke for my birthday. I love Olivia Rodrigo because the songs are, somewhat easy to sing. They are dramatically talk acted.
Mm-hmm.
So I did those. Super Rich Kids by Frank Ocean, a go-to. I did Girls by The Dare, if you know that song. I don't know why I did it, except that I did it very well.
I like to speak sing, as that is the only thing I'm capable of, and mine is Night Changes by One Direction, which hits so hard in the post Liam situation.
You want to take us out on that?
I don't. I'm gonna take us here and then exit the normal way. Kyle, we've pimped the hell out of the 100 greatest movies list, but is there anything else you'd like to promote while you have these wonderful seconds left?
Well, I write articles that you can find at the New York Times. I am reluctantly still on social media to the degree that people are these days. So I am on, I'm not going to call it X, Twitter, Blue Sky sometimes even. Or, just search my name, you'll find it.
I have to really tap into Blue Sky. I do have an account, but I always forget I have it.
Yes, I think that's most people's Blue Sky experience.
Okay.
And then there are the people who are fearsomely committed to it.
Right. And they are libs. That is our episode. Thank you to the fabulous Ty Burrell for joining us. We will be back next week with Ira Madison. Who knows? We'll see you then.